What is up, guys? It's Austin here from Campus to Canton, part of the Campus to Canton podcast. I do all my writing over here. I'm on Devi Debates. I am in the Discord as well. I am here today to give you guys a little bit of information about campus rebuilds. There is so much out there about guys you're buying down the stretch to help your teams win. Not a lot of talk about what you're supposed to do if you're the guy selling, if you're getting rid of some of these guys. So that is what I want to discuss today. If you want to check out, I've recently written an article about this called "So Your Team Is Bad Now What." I guess this is now "So Your Team Is Bad Now What" Part 2 in video form. And yeah, I'm just going to cover some moves that I think you guys can make in your leagues, because rebuilding in the Campus to Canton on the campus side is not a 3-year ordeal. I think we hear the word rebuild. If we're in a dynasty mindset, it is a scary, scary proposition, something that's going to take 2 or 3 years. And if I make a bad pick or I screw up somewhere along the line with a bad trade, that it just resets the whole clock for me. That is not the case in Campus to Canton, guys. On the campus side, you should be able to completely overhaul a roster in 1 year. I've seen it done many times. And hopefully some of the names that I give you guys here today, some of the strategy that we talk about, will help you do the same. The first thing I want to tell you guys, though, before we get too far into this, subscribe here to our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a lot more video content here over the next few weeks, not only on, kind of some moves down the stretch. We're going to be talking a lot of 2022 freshmen here, and just some other strategy type pieces, because that is kind of what interests me. So I can't speak for everybody else here, but I at least will be putting up some pretty regular content on that. On to the other stuff here, guys. So the first thing that I think if you are in a rebuild that you must do is consult your league's bylaws, guys. That is going to be the biggest piece of this, because the bylaws obviously are going to tell you what you can and cannot get away with. I have some leagues where the waiver wire is shut down here for the rest of the year. I'm sure you guys are probably in some of those as well. I have some where the trade deadline is already passed. I'm sure you guys do as well. And those are kind of the two big areas that we're going to discuss here today. So obviously some of this may not be 100% applicable, but at the very least, I'm going to give you guys some names to maybe jot down on your list, pay attention to when you come up to your supplemental drafts later in the offseason. One of my favorite times of the year. So that is going to be kind of just the very, very basic thing that I tell you first. The second thing, this is going to kind of mirror the rebuilds that you would normally do on a dynasty team or on the Canton side of your Campus to Canton. Old guys we're getting rid of. And if we have open waivers, we're abusing them, guys. Those are kind of the two big takeaways here from today. The two categories that 99% of what I say today are going to fall into. Seniors, guys. If you've got seniors and you don't think there's any sort of real chance at day 1, day 2 draft capital, they're big producers on the college side, ship them off to contenders. I'm talking about guys like Justin Hall, wide receiver at Ball State. I'm talking about Devin Tompkins, wide receiver at Utah State. There, Jalen Warren maybe at Oklahoma State, the running back there. There are players that just don't have a lot of NFL potential. You can get rid of those guys. Now, be careful. This can be a dangerous, dangerous game. You don't trade away your Kenny Pickett's. Those guys might have some value here down the stretch. Your Calvin Austin. So, I mean, if you have doubts, like if you're kind of saying, does this guy have NFL potential? Ask somebody, ask me, ask any of the other guys here at Campus Canton, or just, whatever draft source you trust. Go out there and take a look, because I don't want you to give these guys away for nothing if they have some value for your NFL side. But you can still kind of maximize some value if you're getting rid of them now. The other half of this is going to be the waivers, and that's actually the part that we're going to start out with here first. I'm saying it again. If your waiver wire is unlimited, if it's open till the very end of the season, guys, on the campus side, you should be abusing that. I have several leagues where we don't have any limits on moves, on FOB, on a deadline until the season is over. I, in those leagues, make 4 to 5 moves a week. I'm churning the bottom of the bench there. I'm stashing as an intriguing name comes up. I'm either watch listing them or I'm adding them. And so let's go through some of those names first here, guys. I tried to pick out players that are less than 10% rostered on Fantrax. And I know Fantrax doesn't really let us divvy that up beyond this. So for all I know, these guys are all rostered in your league. You have a very deep league, and I apologize, but I think you'll find at least one or two of these guys should be available. Let's kick in here first. Quarterbacks. Luke Altmyer, quarterback at Ole Miss. The possible heir apparent to Matt Corral, who I think we all assume is going to leave that team after this year, head to the NFL draft, and be possibly the first overall pick in that NFL draft. Altmyer was and he's 5% rostered on Fantrax. Now, again, he might be picked up in your league. He might not. But if he's available, you should certainly scoop him. I would label this one a high priority add. 4-star recruit in the 2021 class there. He was number 21 in the 24/7 composite, 6'1", 205. And guys, I know you might hear people say this phrase, and I'm going to kind of show you why here. We want Lane Kiffin quarterbacks. There are just some coaches, we like certain players at certain positions. Lane Kiffin's quarterbacks, I only went back 5 years, guys. But if I had continued back further, I would have just found more and more for you. The past 2 years, he's been at Ole Miss. The 3 years before that, he was at FAU. See, he had 2 different quarterbacks during his time at Florida Atlantic, and then obviously just Matt Corral during his time here at Ole Miss. So fantasy points, I did a quick little tabulation here, rushing and passing. This year, 2021, Matt Corral has 273.84 fantasy points. And this is just, he might be slightly off of that on Fantrax, but I just did a quick little tabulation. Last year, he had 296 points. The 3 years before that at FAU, their quarterbacks there, Chris Robeson and Jeff Driscoll, had 254 fantasy points, 164, and 224.5. If you take the 5-year average there, guys, 242 points on the season. That would put you right around QB 20 this year in standard scoring. So that is a QB1 or a QB2. Most leagues, you're starting 2 quarterbacks, so there is a starter. So if Luke Altmyer is available in your league and he does take that job, that's what you can expect the bar to be set at a minimum. Now, I will say there are some risks here with Luke Altmyer. First off, we're not 100% sure if Lane Kiffin will be back with Ole Miss next year. There is some rumor that, maybe LSU sniffing around, maybe USC would be funny. He's already been there, and that did not necessarily end well. But there are some schools interested in head coach Lane Kiffin there. The other possible question mark with Matt Corral leaving and the transfer portal rules being what they are now, does Ole Miss bring in somebody else? And that is certainly a possibility. If neither of those things happen, though, I mean, you've gotten a free QB2 and you're beating all your league mates to the supplemental draft. I think that's going to be that's free money for you. You can sell them off at that point if you want. You can do whatever you want, but you've gained a ton of value and spent virtually nothing to do it. That's kind of the name of the game here, guys. So go get Luke Altmyer. Second on my list here, DEQUAN Finn, quarterback at Toledo, a guy that we've talked about a bit on the Campus to Canton podcast recently. You might recognize the name if you listen in there. He is 4% rostered right now on Fantrax. Let me just tell you, to give you the timeline of DEQUAN Finn, because he is actually a third-year guy here in college. He committed to Central Michigan out of high school in 2019. He played a little bit there that year, but retained his red shirt, transferred out to Toledo, sat last year with the COVID year, did not count against his eligibility. So he is still technically labeled as a true freshman this year, but this is really his first year getting any sort of meaningful action. As a passer, he's not great. He's completing about 55% of his passes. Can he improve upon that over the next couple of years? That's very possible. And the MAC isn't exactly a defensive conference there, but what we really want him for, guys, is that rushing upside. He, on this season right now, is about 350 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns. I would expect as he gets more comfortable, that amount to be able to improve. He's the 66th ranked quarterback in his first season in standard quarterback scoring. So, dual threat, Konami type kid. You're not expecting any sort of NFL future, but that's okay. Another, and quarterbacks, you can never have enough of them, guys. As we know, you get to this point in the year, guys are hurt. We've got bye weeks. I mean, you never know when you're going to need some of these quarterbacks. DEQUAN Finn is the perfect kind of guy that's just an emergency guy on your bench. If you need somebody to come in and spot you a week, he can get you 20, 25, and he's gotten over 30 points at once this season as well. So, I mean, that is certainly a possibility for him as well. And like I said, 4% rostered, probably available on your waiver wire there. So go check him out. Let's shift to running backs here, guys. Another name that I talk about all the time on the Campus to Canton podcast, Malachi Thomas, another true freshman. He's at Virginia Tech. He is 8% rostered on Fantrax. He's steadily been climbing there in the rostership numbers over the past few weeks. He was the running back 79 in the 2021 class. So he was very low rated. Virginia Tech brought in, I believe, 4 freshman running backs this year, kind of let them duke it out to see who would move to the top of the depth chart. And it seems like Thomas is going to be the guy. He's 6 foot, 197. He's a little tinier than you'd want, but he does have some frame. I think that he will bulk up there a little bit this offseason, get up closer to that 210 number that we like to see. For a lot of these freshmen, they don't have overwhelming, just mind-blowing total stats on the year. So a lot of them are going to kind of just look back at their past couple of games as they started to creep up the depth chart and get more and more snaps. And that is certainly the case here with Thomas, who has gone in the past 3 games. He has 324 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, basically nothing before that. But that is very, very encouraging. Been getting the bulk of the touches, the bulk of the snaps. The guy he's competing with for snaps, Raheem Blackshear, is a senior. He will be gone. Should open up plenty of opportunity there for Thomas. I am on record. I know in the Discord, I've talked about this and possibly on Twitter as well. Malachi Thomas has the chance to be this year's Sean Tucker in terms of just, value rocket ship. If you remember back to this time last year, Sean Tucker was the nice little running back that could at Syracuse. We thought we'd get 3 or 4 years out of him there, and then we would just say goodbye, and the relationship was over. Now, all of a sudden, he's talked about as a legitimate day 2 NFL draft pick. He's one of the top rusher. I believe he is the top rusher currently here through 10 weeks in terms of pure yardage, and certainly one of the highest scoring fantasy running backs there. I think Malachi Thomas can do something very, very similar. Now, I do think there is, again, some risk here with Thomas. Head coach Justin Fuente there, Virginia Tech. I would be very shocked if he's back next year. The writing has been on the wall there for a while. So does a new coach look for a new back there? It's a very strong possibility. But if Thomas can hold on to that job over the course of the offseason, then I think you're just feeling really, really good about a guy that can be a really strong starter for you on your campus sides, and I think has the potential to have some NFL value further down the road. That's the name of the game here, guys. Next up, Carson Steele, running back at Ball State. This is a campus2canton.com special. The guys on the site love him. I know Jarek has talked about him in his By the Numbers segments. Matthew Bruning has recently written an article on him. I mentioned him in my first article about rebuilding. So, I mean, he is, a hot name for us, and for good reason. 4% rostered on Fantrax. And these are the kind of stories that you really like to hear. He was not ranked at all in the 2021 class. It was basic. I think it was like a low 2-star. Came in there, worked his butt off, kind of worked his way up the depth chart. And again, another guy that over the past few weeks has started to just earn more and more touches and a higher percentage of the touches. That was a split backfield for a large portion of the year. 6'1", 215, has nice size. He's a okay athlete, 582 yards and 6 total touchdowns on the season. Looking back since he started to really take that backfield, though, 341 yards and a touchdown in the past 3 games. So, great production there, averaging over 100 yards. He's a MAC kid. We like the MAC, even if these guys don't score a ton early in the year. When the playoffs come around and the points matter more, he'll be in his MAC schedule and he will be doing his thing. Ball State loses a lot of their passing production this year, guys. Drew Plitt, their quarterback, is a senior, and this is like his COVID year. He's completely done, has no more time left. Same with Justin Hall, their wide receiver. It's unclear if Johannes Tyler, their other big wide receiver threat, will be back. So this offense could look completely different or next year, and it could be shifting more to a running focus over what kind of the passing attack that it's been recently. I think Carson Steele is an intriguing option there, and again, at only 4% rostered on Fantrax, you should look to pick him up. Next name here, another running back, Montrell Johnson, running back at University of Louisiana Lafayette, UL, as they like to be called. 8% rostered on Fantrax, guys. 60th ranked running back in the 2021 class, according to the composite. And he is about 5'11", 210. So really nice size there for him. So far this season, he has 660 total yards. He's averaging about 6 yards per carry. He's got 9 touchdowns on the year. And what's really exciting about Montrell Johnson and his potential, guys, just listen to some of these numbers for what that UL rushing offense has done over the past 4 years. In 2018, they were 22nd in yards per game as a total offense, 14th in a per touch average. 2019, they were 6th in the country in yards per game, 3rd on a per touch basis. 2020, they were 21st, 12th per touch. And this year, currently 26th total rushing offense and 22nd per rush. That is an amazing consistency, guys. Even though they usually have a stable of backs there, they all are able to kind of get theirs. They've put a couple of guys in the NFL. Most recently, everybody's favorite San Francisco 49er, Elijah Mitchell. And so Johnson may very well be the next guy in line there. He is competing with a couple other guys for touches, Bailey, Chris Smith. So, I mean, we'll see how that split shakes out over the next few years, but that is just an intriguing backfield and a guy that has broken through there as a true freshman. You're probably going to get at least 2, 3, 4 more years out of this kid. That's great for your college teams, even if we're not expecting any potential beyond that. Next running back here on our list, JEVYON Ducker, running back at Northern Illinois. I feel really bad every time I talk about this kid because he was too good of a recruit for NIU. I don't know how he kind of ended up there. He was the number 15 all-purpose back in the country in 2020. I mean, that is an extremely high recruit for Northern Illinois to snag. He's kind of a local-ish kid, so it makes sense. And I guess he was overlooked a little bit by some of the local schools there because he was a little undersized. He's 5'10", 185. I think there's room on the frame to get him up into the 190s. So this is probably a college-only play. He sat last year, didn't really play that much, and they do have a deep backfield at NIU, but Harrison Whaley and Antonio Brown both went down over the past few weeks, and during that time, Ducker has gone 33 carries for 210 yards, 31 carries for 183 yards, and 19 carries for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that is great production there at NIU for this kid. Some risk, guys, of course. Obviously, like I mentioned, it took 2 guys ahead of him getting hurt for him to take over the job. What happens when they come back? I'm not 100% sure. And both of those guys are either first or second year freshmen on the depth chart. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how all of that shakes out. But Ducker, who's only 10% rostered on Fantrax, it doesn't hurt anything if you have a bench spot to stash this kid. You throw him on there at the end. If it turns out that Brown and Whaley come back next year and Ducker's an afterthought again, then you drop him. And no harm, no foul. But he's explosive, almost over 450 yards here in the past couple of weeks. That's amazing production, and a guy that I certainly want to be adding. 2 more running backs here for you guys. First one is a name that I'm not really hearing anybody talk about. BRAYDON, running back at Coastal Carolina. Very lowly ranked as a recruit coming out of high school in 2020. He was the 161st ranked athlete in his class. 6'2", about 190 currently listed. Redshirted last year. This stats are not eye-popping this year. 334 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then he has 16 catches for 217 yards and another touchdown. The intriguing part about BRAYDON Bennett is that the depth chart is about to be a little more open in front of him. There are 2 backs that get more touches than Bennett this year, Shamari Jones and Reese White. Reese White returns. Shamari Jones likely does not. I believe he is out of eligibility. And so that is going to open up a lot of opportunity for him there. And like that UL offense that we talked about earlier with Montrell Johnson, Coastal's offense over the past couple of years here. In 2020, they were 15th in total rush offense and 25th on a per touch basis. This year, they are 9th in the country in total rush offense and 2nd per touch. This is a team that knows how to run the ball, that likes to run the ball. And so the volume should be there, and the system should be there for him to produce in a big way. For, like I said, 4% rostered, very, very low. I in most of my leagues, if he's rostered at all, it's me. The other ones, he's a free agent. He's certainly, again, another guy that's worth a stash. And if the depth chart does not shake out in his favor over the offseason, you can cut him with no harm. But I feel pretty good that he's going to be in that rotation next season. Last waiver wire name here, guys, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some trades that I think you can make. Jackson McChesney, running back at BYU. This is a Felix Sharp special. If you guys don't know Felix, the host of Devy Debate, our Devy show here at Campus to Canton. He does a little bit of writing. Mostly he just is there to push my buttons. But he is a big Jackson McChesney guy. He's the guy that kind of pointed me in his direction. He is 1% rostered on Fantrax. So, barely any chance that he's rostered in your leagues. He was the number 14 all-purpose back in his class, guys. Unfortunately, that was the 2017 class. These BYU kids, they go on their mission. He is a bajillion years old. Doubtful that there's NFL potential there, but he's got great size at 6'2", 215. He's got 3 or 4 years of eligibility left. The depth chart, should Tyler Algier decide to leave this year, is extremely thin behind them, especially for a guy that can kind of just, handle the load between the tackles, which is what McChesney is at this point. Why not, guys? BYU's offense has been pretty strong. They don't play the most difficult schedule as an independent. They have a couple of tough games in there, but they also have quite a few cupcakes. They played Idaho State this past weekend, and a lot of those guys went off. So, and Tyler Algier has been a top 10 back this year in terms of fantasy production. McChesney free. If he produces 80% of what Tyler Algier has done, that is a big, big score for you there. So I think that he is kind of an intriguing option there and should be someone you consider, although I would consider him less than a couple of the other names there that I listed, just because we haven't seen a ton out of him, and he's really, really old. So there is literally zero NFL potential. He'll be like 26 by the time he gets to the NFL. A couple of honorable mentions here for you guys. Just some names that I've been kind of stashing here this week. Logan Diggs, the running back at Notre Dame. If Kyron Williams leaves, he should be an intriguing option there to take over that job. Got Trayvon Rudolph, the second-year freshman at NIU, who had the 300-yard game this past weekend, or this past week. He's an intriguing guy. And then wide receiver is a little more difficult to predict, guys. So I didn't put any of them on my ads list. But if you see some guys in your league, go to Fantrax, sort by freshman, sort by available, sort by points per game, and kind of look through and see if there's any intriguing options there for you. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about a guy's potential or maybe what a depth chart is going to look like next year. I am certainly happy to talk about that. All right, guys, enough of the waiver wire, because I'm sure some of you are probably saying, well, my waiver wire is closed and has been for a couple of weeks now. And I am sorry to hear that. I've been trying to preach the gospel so leagues do not do that anymore. Because it limits kind of the fun you can have here at the end of the year. But let's talk some trades, guys. There are certainly some players out there, and this is certainly not an exhaustive list. I only put 5 names down here that I think are kind of big targets for me. Super, super cheap options that I think could blow up here over the next couple of years. First name on the list, Donavan McCulley, the quarterback at Indiana. You might be familiar with his name by this point. He has started the past couple of weeks for the Hoosiers since Michael Penix has, it seems like, just been completely written off there, perpetually injured. McCulley has some nice pedigree there. You wouldn't think it being the quarterback at Indiana, but he was the 25th overall quarterback in the composite in the 2021 class. He's 6'5", a little over 200 pounds. Very much a dual threat kid. He's really, really good outside of structure. He really kind of struggles inside it. So that's going to be the big hurdle for him there over the next couple of years. Can he learn to work inside structure? There are some really promising signs, though, in that regard. He is completing less than 50% of his passes right now, guys, which is obviously a big concern, but he's not making big mistakes. He's not turning the ball over. And I think that is the most promising thing. I think that the coaching staff has tasked him with ball safety, and he's done a very, very good job of that. Only a couple of touchdowns, but he's also had, I mean, he played Michigan this past week. That is a very difficult matchup for a true freshman kid to kind of go out there and try to do anything. So McCulley should be a guy that I think you have your eyes on. If I had to wager, he is probably rostered in your league, but if he's not, another waiver wire option there for you. So go take a look at Donovan McCulley. If he can figure some things out, I think he has the Michael Penix potential there that we really, really liked as a top 20 to 25 fantasy option there, and then possibly some NFL upside. Who's to say? Next up for me here, Preston Stone, a name that has just been completely forgotten. Quarterback there for SMU. He is the highest rated quarterback recruit, and I think the highest rated recruit that SMU has ever been able to pull in there. He was the number 15 quarterback in this past class, 6'2", 205. And just, we haven't really seen him play this year because Tanner Mordecai has just been so dang good, but he's very, very mobile. He's got a really good arm. He's explosive. Again, outside of structure, kind of a run around, make things happen kind of kid. So he's going to need to work on that stuff. There are a couple of different options for Preston Stone. I think either he stays at SMU, Mordecai, maybe he tests the draft this year. He does have another year if he wants it. So Stone could be sitting there another year. I think if that were to happen, Stone would consider the portal, even though he is an extremely local kid. Grew up not that far there from where SMU is located. There will be other options out there for him, I'm sure. A scenario, for instance, we talked about this week on Campus to Canton pod. If head coach Sonny Dykes leaves, does he try to take Preston Stone with him? Certainly an option there. But just a name that, I think if somebody's competing and you're trying to get something back from them, I think Preston Stone is a great target because he is definitely not helping them this year. Like there is just no chance that he will be worth anything in 2021. And so you can generally part competing teams with guys like Stone. So I think that he is certainly an option there. Another quarterback here. Next, guys, my last quarterback on the list, KAIDON Salter, quarterback at Liberty. Salter is a really interesting case. He was the number 19 quarterback in the 2021 composite there at 24/7 Sports. And he was kicked out of Tennessee really freaking quickly, guys. The Tennessee was having some issues perception-wise to the public. He was arrested twice in just a couple of months there. Once for a drug charge, the other for an assault and battery. And the alleged story is that it was a fight in a dorm room to steal some drugs. Whether that part of it's true or not, regardless, those charges do not look great for him there. Settled in at Liberty here and has actually played a little bit over the past couple of weeks with Malik Willis banged up. He's not Malik Willis. He is not quite that toolsy, but I think he can still be an adequate replacement there for Willis. And in fact, I think he probably is the replacement. I would be pretty surprised to see somebody else there step in and take that job following Malik Willis's departure here this offseason. Very, mobile, toolsy kind of kid, extreme knucklehead. I wouldn't pay a lot for him, guys, but if you can kind of get him again as a throw-in type of guy, you have one of those. You have a Devin Tompkins. You say just give me KAIDON Salter straight up, and we'll call it even. I could probably live with that, but not a guy that I necessarily want to plan to build a roster around with kind of his past troubles. Hopefully, he figures it out. And can become the college football player that he wants to be, but definitely needs to keep his head down here and do that. I would imagine he's probably not on the longest leash at Liberty there with Hugh Freeze. One running back here on the list, guys, and this is a name that I've been talking about a lot recently, Evan Pryor, true freshman running back at Ohio State. Based purely on talent this year, he was my RB4. And he was the RB6 in the composite, flip back and forth between all-purpose and regular back. I think he just settled in as the number 6 running back. He's 5'10", 198. He's a really good pass catcher. Ohio State, I kind of questioned why he went there because, obviously the same class as Travion Henderson, who everybody loves. They also have a variety of other names there, including Master Teague, Mayan Williams. They had Steele Chambers, who switched over to linebacker since then. I mean, the depth chart was pretty full. He's gone there, gotten a couple of touches over the past few weeks and been okay with it, averaging about 5 yards a carry, has a little over 100 all-purpose yards, has a touchdown. A couple scenarios that I think need to play out for Pryor to have really good value next year, because Travion obviously not going anywhere. Mayan Williams, I think, needs to transfer. I think that there is a decent likelihood of that happening with Travion kind of taking that job and him probably believing that he can be a bell cow somewhere. He is from the Cincinnati area. Jerome Ford, if he were to leave Cincy, is that a place that Mayan Williams could go? Maybe. There are plenty of other options for him there as well. So I think that's one thing that kind of needs to happen to elevate his stock. I don't know what's going to happen with Master Teague either, because I believe he has some more eligibility. But if those guys all leave, he has the potential to be the number 2 RB on the depth chart there, which is a very valuable piece. If that stuff doesn't happen, then I think you could see Pryor transfer. And if that's the case, then all of a sudden, some value if he lands in a nice spot. And I think that he would be a pretty popular guy there in the portal. So Evan Pryor, running back, OSU, is a guy there that I think you should be paying extreme attention to that whole situation this offseason. And then last, certainly not least here, my single wide receiver on the list is Marcus Burke, wide receiver at Florida. 6'3", 180. He was the 33rd overall wide receiver in the composite in 2021. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I actually don't really generally like the type of wide receivers that Florida recruits. They just get like the rawest kids they can possibly find and hope they can coach them up, and they generally don't do a very good job of that. So I am generally out on on Florida wide receivers at costs and drafts. But the year after, when some of the shine has come off of them, I start to get a little more interested. The depth chart at Florida has some uncertainty. They've got the 2 leading guys there, Justin Shorter, Jacob Copeland, are both redshirt juniors, both guys that have been around for forever. If they can get out of there, or at least one of them, clear up some space there for some of the guys beneath them, that would be great. If they don't, then we're going to have some issues with Burke, and he's going to be very droppable. This is a total, just throw him in type piece, guys. If you're trying to draft, this isn't like a guy that you hit up the Burke owner and you say, what do you want for Burke? You hope that you can get in trade talks with them and then say, oh, you just throw in Marcus Burke. They'll probably say, sure. You can let him sit on your bench there and see what happens. And some uncertainty with coaching staff as well there, guys. Dan Mullen very much on the hot seat. They made him fire his defensive coordinator. What happens with Mullen? What happens with the rest of the staff? We don't know. So again, will be something to monitor, but Burke, certainly an intriguing name there down in Florida. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Like I said at the beginning, please subscribe here to the channel. We're going to be doing a lot more of this type of content for you. And I hope that at least, one name I said here today is available in your league. You can go get them, start to beef up that bench, beat your league mates to some of these guys, and be sitting pretty entering the 2022 seasons. That's going to do it here for me, guys. Again, I am Austin at Debbie Dietz on Twitter. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.